Hi, hello everyone. Welcome again to my channel, The Creative Agile IT. So, as part of today's video, I'm going to share how we can have our JIRA dashboard for backlog health metrics. What are the basic set of 5 metrics that we can capture in our JIRA dashboard that can give us a good idea about our backlog health? So, we will understand it. We will design our queries. We will use those queries to reflect data on our dashboard. So I'm sharing the cloud Jira instance that I'm using for some of the videos. So this is like creative learning made simple at Atlassian.net. And what I will do is if I click on all the projects as part of this instance, so we have these many, but I mean, for this particular video, let us create a new project. So I will click on create project. And if I choose software development, I can see the Scrum as a template. So we want to go ahead and create a Scrum project, and we will select company managed project, and let's name it as Scrum September month 25, just to remember. Okay, I'm not inviting any of the teammates, I'm skipping it. So it has created the project in that cloud instance, Scrum SEP 25, and that's the key SCRM board. And we can see the backlog is empty. So the purpose of this particular video is to kind of like look at what are the some basic set of 5 metrics that we can utilize, and we can use them in our Jira dashboard. So very first thing we will do is we will create some backlog items, the user stories here. So if I click on the create here itself, we can select the types here. It's not showing the story, but let's see. Okay, so these are the types which are available. So we already have the task, story, bug, and epic. So that should be fine. If I go back and click on, okay, somehow it is not allowing me to, select the story from here. So no issues. I mean, what we will do is we will create a story from here. We will say, okay, so this is the story that we have created. If I again click on, uh, so this is one of the story. Maybe let's try to create one more story, which we can say forgot username. Let's create another story, which is forgot password. Okay, now it's allowing me to select the story. That's fine. So we can create it from here itself. So we have, let's say, user profile is another story. Then we can say manage user profile. This is another story. Let's try to create one more story, and we can bring the mouse over here to see whether it's a story or something else. So let's say we have online payments using debit card. So this is also one of the story. And then we can say this is also one of the story, credit card. Maybe we can say online payments using net banking, online payments using wallets, online payments using, let's say, GPay. Okay, so we have these set of like 10 stories that we have created. Now, what we will do is we will also go to the active sprints. So this is our Kanban flow where to do represents the items which is there in the backlog, and then the subsequent stages in our workflow like in progress, done. We will add one more column here. So we will say, let's say, QA test. So it has been added. So we have in progress, then the QA does the testing, and then it is done. And one more stage, we will say ready for development. And we will just move it after to do. So basically the idea is whatever we have in our backlog and whatever the stories are DOR compliant, which are ready for the development, we will move it in the ready for development stage. Now, what we will do is we will create some queries because the idea about this video is to have certain metrics for the backlog health. So what we can do is we can go to the all work, and we can say use the AI as well. Stories with no description. So this is the query that it has generated. It is saying project is equal to SCRM and issue type is a story and description is empty. So what we will do is we will click on the save filter, and we will say this query as stories with no description, and we will save it. Okay. Similarly, what we can do is if I clear the filters, and now if I ask this stories with no story points, let's say what it does. So I mean I'm using AI as well, because this is a very handy feature. It helps in a lot of ways and make our job easier. So this is the query that it has generated, where project is equal to SCRM, issue type is a story points is empty. So now again we can save the filter. We can say stories with no story points. This is the name, this is the description, we are saving it. Okay, and if I close this one, if I say clear filters, now again I will ask this guy stories with no parents. Let's see what it does. So it has generated this query. It is saying project is equal to SCRM, issue type is a story, and parent is empty. We will again save this filter. We will say stories with no parents, and we will provide the same thing in our description as well. We will save it. Now again we can just clear this filter, and we can ask this guy stories not updated in last 2 weeks. So let's say what it tells us. So this is the query. Project is equal to SCRM, issue type is a story, update is less than minus 2 weeks. So because we have just created our project and we have just placed some of the stories in our backlog, and that's why it is resulting in a empty results. So but we will save this query. We will say uh, stories aging. We can call it stories aging details. If it is already existing, we can save it. Okay, now we can close this one and we can clear this filter as well. Now this is, let's create another query. We will say stories in to do and ready for development states. So this is the query that it has generated. Project is equal to SCRM, issue type is the story, status in to do and ready for development. Now we can again save this one. We can say stories in to do and ready. So this is how we have created some set of queries. Now what we can do is if we if we click on more, so we can see the dashboards, and we can click on this plus sign to create a dashboard, and we can say Scrum September 25 team dashboard. Okay, so this is how we have created our dashboard. Now we are going to use a gadget which is called two-dimensional filter. So we will say add. We will again click on add because this is the one which we are going to be used. Again add and again add. Let's see. So what we will do is we will use we can just expand this one to make it a larger screen. So we will select very first filter, that is stories with no description. And what we can do is we can say x-axis is our status and y-axis is our issue type. If I say save, let's say what it does. Okay, so it is showing like, and we can just rename this one. We will just call it C clarity stories with no description. Okay, now let us pick another one. We will say stories with no parents. And again, we will select x-axis as the status and y-axis as issue type. And if I say save, so these are the stories with no parents. So we will say it as L linked. Okay. Now again, we will pick another filter, which is like stories with no story points. And here again, we can pick the status, y-axis we can pick as issue type. And if I say save, okay, so we will say E estimations missing, and then we can have stories with no story points. And then we will have for the aging stories aging details. Again, we can pick it up as the status, y-axis as the issue type. And if I click on save, so here we will have a aging of stories. Okay, and we can simply drag it and put it here so that it is aligned. Now we will add another filter, add a gadget. which is again two-dimensional one. We will say add and we will say done. And this one we want to select stories in to do and ready for development stage. So where we will have the status and the issue type. So I can click on save. Now what I can do is I can simply just drag it a bit below and I can say are ready. Okay. Now this is what we have. I mean, we have placed five two-dimensional widget in our Jira dashboard where the each letter C is for the stories where the acceptance criteria or description is missing. So we say C as a clarity, stories with no description. Then we have L as the link, that means story is not linked with parents. Then we have E, that means estimations missing, story with no story points. And we have A, aging of the story. It will represent like how many days a story is lying in a particular state. And then we have the ready stories, the stories which are in the ready stage or compared to the to do stage. So this represents a synonym C, L, E, A, and R, clear, which is basically the clarity, linked, estimations missing, aging of the stories, and the ready percentage stories. So now what we can do is if I just open this Scrum board in a new tab and we can see like how it is working, whether it's a working or not working. So we have 10 stories in our backlog. So if I open the user login in a new one, so we can see the description is empty. So what I can do is I can simply click user is able to log in. Minimum 8 characters in length with as capital and one special character. So if I save it, let's say this is what we thought like initial description for one, and if we want to convert it into the acceptance criteria, we can just utilize not this one. We can click on the improve work item. We can say improve description, and we will say replace. So it has automatically created the user stories definition as a user. When I provide my username and password, I want to log in so that I can access my account, and this is the acceptance criteria. So this is how we have entered the description and the acceptance criteria for the story. Now, if I go back, so remember, I mean, we had 10 stories and we didn't provided the description or acceptance criteria for any of these. Now we have provided for the user login. So now if I refresh my dashboard, so it will tell us, how many stories are there where we do not have the description. So now it is telling we have 9 stories where stories with no description is present. That means our query is working. Now, let us try to understand the estimations one. So if we look at, we do not have the story points for any of these. So let's say for this one, we are saying it's a 3 story points. The forget username is also like 5 story points. Forgot password is again 3 story points. So out of 10 stories, we have provided the estimations for 3 of these. So if I again refresh my dashboard and see, do we have the estimations missing for any of the stories? So let's say what it does. I think it is picking some other filter. We will have to see if I look at the projects and the filters. So stories with no story points. This is fine. Okay, I think there is a spelling mistake. So that's why it was not giving us this particular result. So what we will do is we will say edit filters, story with no story points. And since, I was doing something else as well as part of this instance, so we was just saying, use this query. Now what we will do is we will go back to our dashboard and we will just change the query of the estimations one. So what we will do, we will click on the this one, we will click on configure and we will say, hey, let's select the this one. This is our query. And we will say save. So now this is perfectly fine because we can see that, we have given the estimations for the 3 stories out of a total 10. So our result is perfectly fine. Now, if you look at stories not linked with parents, so we do not have any parents defined for any of the story. So what we will do is let's try to create one epic. We will say this is our epic, and we can say this epic is user management. And if I say simply create, so this epic has been created. Now, what we will do is if I come here to the user login, I can say this is part of user management. Forgot username is also part of the user management. So we have defined the parents for 2 stories out of 10. Now, if I go back and try to refresh my dashboard, so now it is telling us, okay, there are 10 stories, but 8 stories are such where we do not have the parents defined. And we can easily, again cross check it. If I define the epic for the forgot password, if I define the epic for, let's say, user profile, so now we have 4 stories where we have the parent defined as 6. In case of 6 stories, the parent is missing. So again, if I refresh my dashboard, so it is going to show. uh, okay, let's see why it is showing 8 when we have 6. Okay, yeah, now it is showing 6. So there was could be something related to the refresh, but it is working. Now comes to the aging of story. So we will not be able to show the aging because we just created and our query is asking, okay, do we have any stories in our backlog which has not been updated in last 2 weeks? So that's why we will not be able to kind of like see the results for this particular query. But if you look at the ready percentage story, so what we will do is if we go to the any of the story, let's say user story, it is ready for development. Forgot username, this is also ready for development. Forgot password is also ready for development, and user profile is also ready for development. So we have mentioned, okay, out of 10 stories in our backlog, there are 4 which are ready for development. Now, if I refresh this one, let's try to see why it is showing. Okay, this is again fine, but I mean, it's a refresh issue. So what we will do is again, We can click on the refresh here. Okay, that's fine. So this is how it is showing. It is showing, okay, we have 6 stories added as to do and 4 stories as ready for development. So that means, we have almost like 40% of our stories in the backlog are ready as per the DEOR. So this also gives us a good indication. Let's say a team has having a very big backlog consisting of, like, let's say 20 stories or maybe like 30 stories, but only 2 stories are ready. So that means, the inflow of the percentage of ready stories is quite less. So we need a good proportion of, how many stories are ready in the development state for the team to be picked up, which are complying with the definition of ready. And these stories represents, okay, on which, we are still refining, the product owner and his or her team is still working. So this was kind of an all about, this particular video where we learned about, how we can create a small, sample Jira project and place some stories in our backlog, how we can define 5 set of queries, which represents the backlog health. That means, how many stories are there where we do not have the description or the acceptance criteria, how many stories are there where which are not linked to any of the feature or the epic where the parents is missing, how many stories are there where the story points are missing, that means they are not been estimated, how many stories are there which hasn't been updated in last, let's say, 1 week or 2 weeks, and we are not able to see the results because we just created this particular backlog today itself. So that's why our query is not resulting into any details. And then how many, what's the percentage of the ready story? So for that, what we did, we included one stage ready for development, just to kind of ensure, okay, whatever comes in our backlog that represents the to do, but I mean, whatever is compliant with the definition of ready, we move it to the ready for development. That means, these 4 stories can be picked up by the team. Okay, so these are the 5 set of like basic set of like backlog metrics that I'm calling it as clarity, linked, estimations, aging, and then ready percentage story. So that's all about today's video. I hope you guys liked it, and thank you so much. And if you like my videos, please do share and subscribe. Thank you.